in Western Cape. But after the lockdown regulations came into place, everything was stopped. The committee requested extension till the end of April and has been given extension up to the 29th of May. Where we are now, we have already submitted procurement of the paying for the adverts, which need to go out this weekend on the 10th of May. The public will be given 30 days to make submissions. The committee is still to meet and revise the program for the next round of public hearings, and also develop strategies that can maximize use of technology so as to enhance public participation. The next update is on slide 10. Yes, on this slide, Madam Speaker, it is a bill that is before the Standing Committee on Finance. The committee is planning to have briefings by National Treasury on the 2nd of June and also consider public submissions on the 9th of June. The next update is on slide number 14. Now, on this slide, it is a bill that is Civil Aviation Amendment Bill before the Transport Committee. The committee had some activities until the 17th of March. The committee is planning to revise the program. Slide number 15. Until the 17th of March. It's also a bill before the Committee on Transport. The committee will still have to revise the program after activities in February and March. Slide number 17. That is the bill before PC on COCTA. The committee plan to have deliberations adopted.
Rabi, your point of order accepted.
To focus on the budget vote. So
please pause. Can you please suspend that?
Later on.
Speaker,
the feedback is terrible.
Next update presentation, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments, honourable members?
Madam Speaker.
Yes,
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, may I go ahead? Dr. Mulder speaking.
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you very
Dr.
much.
Mulder.
Yes, I just want to refer to the first item mentioned. That was the public participation process with regard to Section 25, the ad hoc committee. The process that we are busy with at the committee at the moment is direct interaction with the public in terms of town hall kind of meetings. It's not interaction where we ask for written or other submissions. So I'm not sure how we foresee to do that in practice, and I'm just concerned that if we would go ahead to give...
Madam Speaker?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just want to... thank you. I just want to follow up on Honourable Mulder's question of Section 25, because we noted a date there, 29th of May, that the committee said they will complete. Now, that's not going to be possible because they then said they need a month for these public hearings. I would suggest that the Honourable Frolick and these chairs of these committees just go through these timeframes that they've put before us again and see whether they are realistic. And possibly our focus should be on getting the budget done, unless there's important, urgent legislation that needs to be done before that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Frolick, can we throw you in?
Yes, no, good morning, Speaker, and thank you. Good morning, honourable members. Now, just in terms of the comment that the Honourable Singh has made, you will recall, honourable members, I did report in a previous meeting that the life of this ad hoc committee is coming to an end and it's impossible for them to complete their work. We require a resolution to give a new date for the ad hoc committee to do their work. The Honourable Mulder is also correct. We will not place any advertisements now because town hall meetings are not possible. and we will look at other ways and mechanisms. We are highly reliant, honourable members, and dependent on the national disaster regulations. And in terms of those regulations, you can't have big meetings taking place. We do have certain challenges, I must say, to the Programming Committee, Honourable Speaker, in the committee section itself. And it will require further intervention in that section to ensure that they give proper reports to the Programming Committee.
Thank you. Are we satisfied, members, that we have dealt with this matter, or do we still wish to say something under the committee section report item?
Honourable Speaker, Mende.
Yes, Ma'am.
Honourable Speaker, what I would like to suggest is that I hear what Chair of Chairs is saying. Can he then, in our next meeting, bring us an update as to what is the way forward when he have already met with the chairpersons of the committees where he is experiencing challenges, in particular the
yes,
one. Thank you.
That's in order. Ma'am Kalipi, do you still wish to say something?
No, I'm covered, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'll take the place, Madam Speaker.
That is
yes, Dr. Senudi.
I asked a question earlier about the no explanation for why there was no scheduling for work to be done in one committee on slide 14. There are others similar. So it would be useful to understand what are the reasons. There are certain statutory requirements. For example, Madam Speaker, when we spoke last time, there was a question about, for example, the end of term of the Auditor General. If the time frames are not met, we are going to be in trouble, as an example, with not meeting the deadlines to have done work to get someone else there. So the scheduling of committees is an important political process as well. And I would like to have an understanding from the Chair of Chairs, what are the reasons given to him why committees have not last met or scheduled things in March, and they haven't done any scheduling relevant to the work that they are currently doing?
And that's I think the better way to handle this is that we must remember that we suspended the business of Parliament very abruptly. What we need to say to Ndate Frolik is to go back to those committees that do not seem to have had a revision of their programs, to do so as soon as possible, and for him to report back to us in the next meeting. I think that is the fairest thing that we can do to him right here.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Honourable Speaker, if I must just comment, please.
Yes, please.
May I indicate, and I don't know what the slide 14 that the Honourable Deputy Speaker is referring to, because I don't have that slide in front of me at the moment. But in terms of statutory appointments, the one of the Auditor General, a week ago I did speak to the Secretary to the National Assembly, because the chairperson of that committee interacted with me, and we were waiting for the referral to the committee of that pending vacancy of the Auditor General that will happen in October this year, so that we can timelessly get involved with advertising and interviewing of candidates, so that the person who's identified can also then work with the current Auditor General for a smooth handing over process. But in terms of other committee work, where they say things must still be scheduled, I'll certainly report back next week, Honourable Speaker, but as you indicated, that the business was suspended and we dealt with the COVID-19 related matters. I'll report next week.
And I can confirm that we have since in the last 2 weeks made that reference to the committee. And that is why it would be better to, at the next meeting, get to understand where we are on this particular issue of the Auditor General. We have made that reference to the committee to start work. If we can proceed, please, we move on to item number 6, the Bills Office.
Madam Speaker.
Yes, sir.
There was the matter of virtual meetings that I think it was Masoni who wanted to raise. and we indicated that it could be dealt with under this item committees.
Yes. Do we want to get into that? Yes.
Ms. Mazone?
The virtual meetings of committees.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Mazone, do you want to come in?
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Kaiso and Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think that it's safe to say that at the best of times, our chairing in this new Parliament hasn't been great. But particularly under the virtual platform, it's become almost impossible for a meeting of Parliament to be conducted in a cordial and certainly effectual manner. I think we saw last night a complete collapse of the Public Enterprises Committee meeting, and certainly we've seen other meetings happen where absolutely no questions are answered by the executive because we run out of time, etc. And I understand that we have limited bandwidth. I also understand that we are extending these meetings by an hour to 3 hours. But Madam Speaker, it's got to the point now where we really have to assess whether or not these portfolios are doing us any good or actually doing us a massive amount of harm, because I think that there is an evasion of accountability, be it intended or not intended, because the platforms don't allow for members to have their questions answered and certainly don't allow for members to have the necessary interactions they require. Madam Speaker, when we look at the possibility of going back into a hybrid system of Parliament, I would strongly urge us to start looking at going into a hybrid system of portfolio committee meetings too, because the way the portfolio committee meetings are working at the moment is not conducive to accountability. We are not doing our jobs as members of Parliament in these particular portfolio committee meetings because we simply cannot run them effectively. We saw the atrocious incident that happened this morning, and Madam Speaker, I hope that you are right. No one should ever have to suffer that kind of abuse, and my heart goes out to you, especially this morning. But I do think that considering we are going into level 4, the economy is opening up, certainly government should be leading the way and government should be opening up, and we should be looking at introducing a hybrid system for the portfolio committee meetings too. I think South Africa, especially in the crisis that we're in, needs their members of Parliament to be acting in the strongest possible manner, and we simply cannot execute our duties on the platform of the virtual meetings as we're having at the moment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Madam.
Madam Speaker.
Come in, Honourable Speaker, on that one.
Ndata Singh.
Thank you very much.
Ndata Singh, and I think.
And Steve Swart, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. No, I agree with Honourable Mazone that certainly, we're not doing justice in terms of holding the executive to account. But having said that, this also happens when we have our meetings in Parliament, because sometimes members are given the laxity to ask questions that go on for 10 or 15 minutes. So maybe as an interim measure, all chairpersons should be advised that they should limit us members to 2 or 3 questions, and then we use the chat line for asking other questions, which will have to be answered, not on the during the 3-hour discussion, but in writing. That may help us moving forward as an interim measure. But I agree with Honourable Mazone that certainly we are not doing 100% justice. But given the means that we have to apply at the moment, then limited time for questions and chat questions can also be sent in. Thank you.
Thank you. Medla Kude.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. We discussed this matter thoroughly in the Chief Whip's Forum, Honourable Speaker, and a proposal was made for committee meetings to have 3 hours so that questions can be answered in those meetings. So there was that proposal, Honourable Speaker. So yes, on the issue of having as our sittings for holding the executive to account, yes, we agreed in the Chief Whip's Forum, we discussed that matter as well, to say that a hybrid system should be allowed, and also a virtual connections should be allowed, as long as those health regulations are taken into account. So those are the things that we have discussed. Another matter, Honorable Speaker, is that some of us, we are disadvantaged. I don't know whether we are, is because we are from the rural provinces. I can't clearly hear the discussions. So I don't know, maybe it's the connections. I really don't know, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Well, I'm in Johannesburg, Honorable Dlakude, and sometimes I get lost. So I think we really are forced as Parliament to start looking at ICT better and ensuring that each and every member's connection is better, because we do not know for how long we will be in this situation. But in any case, other parliaments have moved to where they ensure that a member can be met virtually or otherwise wherever they are, as and when they are needed. So we need to be moving on that. For me, it is
Honourable
not,
Speaker.
Honourable Mazoni and Honourable Singh, the how long. It is the quality of the interaction that must happen between a committee and the executive. It doesn't, even if we can stretch the sitting hours of the committees to 6 hours, unless we ask pointed questions and demand thorough, deliberately thought through answers from the executive, we can sit for 6 hours. So I think that we need to do something about it. I am also advised that committees have decided even to stretch the sitting hours into the evening time so that people can really focus on it. Let's give it a try, and let's hope that Ntate Frolik and Meboroto will be able to work together to ensure that members are enabled and the chairpersons are enabled to be able to thoroughly get to the nub of things. Yes, our job is to make sure that we hold to account, but we must also make sure that the quality of that interaction is not just haphazard. It really gets to where we want it to get. Members, is there any other member who wishes to input on this? We have heard what Member Zonia is saying and Ndate Singh is saying, and I'm sure Ndate Frolik, you are taking this into consideration.
Yeah. Scott,
Mende, Speaker.
Yes, Mende.
We'll look into it. Sure.
Mende.
Yeah, well, Speaker, well, I agree with you fully. We can stretch out in so many hours in terms of the committee time, but if there's no quality in terms of the responses and the questions, we will serve this parliament no purpose. What I'm also suggesting is that, like you are doing, as and when there is a glitch, you continuously refer to the team that you are working with. It looks like at a committee level, the teams are not well coordinated. Can then the House Chair look into that and ensure that there is an IT person that works directly with the committee secretary and whoever else is at a supporting level of a chairperson of a committee? Because in many times, they even lose the screens and everything and keep asking who took the screen, someone takes over the screen and all that. Please make sure that we align the support staff of each and every committee accordingly, and each committee must have its own people. Thank you.
And each committee administrator must be trained to be able to help run a meeting in all senses.
Speaker Steve Swart, please.
That is Swart, please.
Steve Swart, can I speak? Thank you.
Please.
May I just firstly, on behalf of the ACDP, just express my disgust about what happened earlier this morning, and we look forward to a report from the acting secretary. The sad part was that this was broadcast live on TV, and it is an affront to every one of us, in particular to you, Speaker. I think it is absolutely disgraceful and disgusting. But that having been said, just on the issue of the committee meetings, last week I did raise the issue of the 2 hours, and I'm pleased that it has been extended. But the key part of the committees is the departments coming and making long presentations, and that we got to cut down on. We get those presentations the day before. The time for the departments to make the presentations must be very brief, and then MPs can have a longer time to engage. And yes, I agree that there must be strong engagement, and we must insist, and the chairpersons need to insist that the members of the executive and the department answer all the questions. I often have the situation where I'll ask 3 or 4 questions and 2 will be answered and the others are not. So I just wanted to express that and emphasize that, as well as the fact the training that you said, Speaker, is so important, because many of these committee meetings are live streamed and we can't continue with an embarrassment. We need to exercise our oversight effectively. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, sir. Member Roto, do you want to come in?
Kalipi as well, Speaker.
No, I'm fine, Speaker.
Okay, Mem Kalipi.
Thank you very much, Speaker. If I can only comment on 2 issues here raised in terms of connection. I think also on the Chiefs Forum, we also raised the issue of connection. We have asked the Parliament to check with network providers, because we are struggling. As you can hear now, that I'm struggling and I'm in Durban, I'm not in the rural area, and it has been happening for quite some times now, the issue of network. If they can engage with service providers in terms of the network. In terms of the presentation that is brought by the departments, Madam Speaker, I agree with the honourable member that just spoke about it. And I think that the chairs of chairs have commented on that one to say that those presentations must not be read page by page. And if we stick to the 24-hour rule to get those presentations within that rule, at least members could have perused the presentation, and when they come in front of the committee, they must not read page by page, because when it's time for members to engage back is the issue of time. If the chairs of chairs, Honorable Frolik, can stress that point with the chairpersons of committees to say that departments must not come with a huge presentation and go page by page, I think we can even save time, Speaker. Thank you.
May I address this? No chairperson worth their salt must agree to documents being presented at the same meeting and hope that they are going to get any quality interaction with those documents. It does not matter whether we're having virtual meetings or not. Proper preparations for a committee meeting is important to enable all members to be on par, to be able to represent their parties, their constituencies. So it does not matter that we are in this situation. Chairpersons must insist in getting the information beforehand. In other words, Ndate Frolik, it does not help us to get this thing that I want to be on virtual meeting today, when I do not even know what is in the presentation that the executive is going to give me today, because then I'm going to fail to represent Parliament properly. So I think we must also, in our haste to have sound bites as chairpersons and committees, make sure that we prepare thoroughly so that we can then ask. And for me, that is why it is important not to even look at longer meetings. It is to look at when I get the chance to prepare myself to go and represent. So I think that Frolik, please go back, have a sit up with the chairpersons, because when we did the training, those few days of orientating chairpersons, we insisted that they must insist in good preparatory work before a committee sitting. And that this complaint that you're talking about is about that. Now what we should be worried about is the ICT, not the preparations. And so the ICT, I'm saying that we, myself, Secretary to the NA, Acting Secretary to Parliament, we must take that responsibility, ensure that every portfolio committee and select committee and joint committee has an ICT person who is making sure that the whole proceedings go accordingly. If we can do that, maybe we'll get somewhere. But we take your point and we apologize for the shoddy work, because that is not what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be interacting, and it is important now in this fluid period that we are in, to make sure that tomorrow as Parliament we are not accused of allowing things just to slip through because we were in a lockdown. So members, Ndate Frolik, I hope you are hearing us, and I hope that you will have a meeting with your chairpersons and just say, it cannot happen. We do not want to see chaos. It cannot happen, Tadeka, so your administrative support must be up to speed. Thank you. Is there any other member on this matter? Member Zoni, have we covered you?
Thank you very much, Speaker.
Good morning. Madam Speaker.
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Ndombela.
Ndade Ndombela.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, I fully understand you on the question of the technicality of our platform. But I was also wanting to suggest that because we are a big account on for the service providers, I think on their part as well, they become obligated to make sure that these accounts of Parliament are well protected and are able to function as we expect them to. But I also fully understand the perspective from which you come, that each portfolio committee should have a technical person who's going to look after the glitches and so on. But I'm saying the service providers themselves have an obligation to assist us in this particular regard. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
I concur.
Honourable Speaker, if I can just respond, please.
Yes, Ndate Frolik.
No, Speaker, thank you for the comments. I want to say that we will once again, we did it last week after the last meeting, and once again, interact with the chairpersons. May I say, Speaker, it's a mixed bunch really that you're dealing with. And I appreciate it when chief whips of parties experience certain difficulties with certain portfolio committees, if they alert me immediately to it. It doesn't really assist to wait until we meet in a chief whips forum or an NAPC meeting that you find out that there were problems in certain committees, and chief whips must please be very, very specific. Some of the meetings have been going very well, others not so well. We will reinforce the support that are being given to the committees when virtual meetings take place, Speaker. But I once again would like to call on the cooperation of all political parties to remind their members that these virtual sessions is not an opportunity to see yourself on virtual networks for a whole time. Some of the members speak in meetings for up to 25 minutes non-stop. And I'm going to ask chairpersons to put a time limit on the inputs that members make and also on the questions. And if any question stands over, then it must be dealt with in a written way and in the following meeting. But we will pay attention to the matters that has been raised, Chief Whip or Speaker.
Thank you very much. Can we pass on this?
Yes,
Member Zoni?
I'm happy, Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've dealt with the report to committees and with the then added discussion on virtual committee meeting. So can we move on to item number 6, which is the Bills Office?
Yes, Madam.
That item will also flow into looking at the matters of the legislation from the leader of government business side.
Yes, Madam.
Madam Speaker. Sorry, Madam Speaker. Sorry, I apologize. But there's a document that was provided for us as a guide for virtual meetings. I thought we should acknowledge that it's a helpful guide and will go a long way to help the processes that we are talking about, that we must compliment the team that produced it to give to all of us who participate in these virtual meetings. And also to request administration to urgently interface with the provisions for example, the the widest bandwidth available to the country until November, so that we access 5G urgently. It will go a long way to ease some of the problems we are having. Today, I'm not putting on my video here because I thought I should save a bit of bandwidth. But it is also acceptable that we move with speed to get to have what will allow us to operate with security urgently, as we've just discussed here, but also with the quickest means that are available to us, which have been provided to us. So we can't be delaying to get hold of that capacity immediately. We will support the teams that are working on this matter.
Thank you very much. We had a discussion yesterday, Linda Tekaso, around these issues, and I think they are attending to it. I have also instructed them to look at what the financial implications are, widening, tightening, and just how better we can cover members of parliament on this one. So your point is taken. The rules that we have circulated, honorable members, apply, but I also think that we might want to also look stricter, at the rules of committee meetings to apply. Because if you are going to have, because we are all free at home, a free-for-all committee meeting, it is also not fair. So we must go back to strictly getting chairpersons to be in control of those meetings, to make sure that they follow the meetings or the rules of the meetings, so that the business starts and finishes in time. I've never supported any meeting beyond 2 hours. I think after 2 hours, people just get too tired. I understand the request for 3 hours because people were thinking that then you accommodate. But in fact, your most effective deliberations should take place within the first 2 hours. Can we move on to item number 6, please?
Yes, Madam Speaker. We request the Bill's office to present. Mr. Bell.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is Neil Bell from the Bill's office.
Yes, Mr. Bell.
Just a few updates since last week. I know there was a question about the withdrawal of 2 bills and the reasons therefore. And I know that Mr. Kasu gave an explanation, but I did have a look at my records, and in both cases, aquaculture development and military discipline, the minister simply indicated that they need further consultation on the bill, and hence it was withdrawn. Secondly, Madam Speaker, there's a bill that appears in the list of Constitutional Court deadline bills, the upgrading of land tenure rights amendment bill. That bill was introduced last night and is now in the system and has been referred to the Portfolio Committee on Agriculture. And lastly, then, I've noticed that the NCOP in its program still referred to the plenary date for the appropriation bill as the 18th of June. I think they will probably adjust that date to take into account the NA date of 23 June. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The floor is open on this part of item 6.
Madam Speaker.
Yes,
I was wondering if you could allow Advocate Van der Merwe to speak on constitutional court deadlines as raised last week in the committee, briefly.
Yes, please.
Thank you,
please proceed.
Speaker. Thank you, Speaker. Good morning, members. We have circulated a report that sets out all the constitutional court orders that have been suspended, but I want to specifically speak to 2 of those matters. And for that, there was a very short presentation circulated as well. The first matter that I want to speak to members to is the Judicial Matters Amendment Bill. This bill deals with the case of Holomisa and Holomisa on amending the Divorce Act. The suspension of this court order lapses on the 22nd of October 2020. The bill has, however, been passed by the National Assembly already on the 18th of March this year, and it is now with the National Council of Provinces for consideration. The other matter that I want to refer to is what Mr. Bell just spoke about, the upgrading of Land Tenure Rights Amendment Bill. This matter, the suspension order, members will recall last week I mentioned that the suspension order lapsed on the 29th of April. On the 1st of May, the department confirmed with us that the Constitutional Court did grant an extension of this order, and the suspension will now only lapse on 29 April 2021. So both of these matters are, I think, what I would like to bring to members' attention, but I think on both of them we have some breathing space. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Inputs?
Honourable Speaker.
Data Singh?
It's Singh. Yeah, no, thank you very much for those reports from the respective team members there. I think I should just bring in the point I raised earlier on about legislation from the executive through the Office of the Leader of Government Business. Because I think sometimes we put pressure on the legal staff that are seated amongst us here to find out from them exactly what's happening. But we must know that legislation has to come from the executive to the LOGB. And perhaps moving forward as an agenda item on NAPAC, we must have LOGB report or report from the President in terms of signing off of legislation. But I just want to know if there's any legislation in the pipeline from the executive through the office of the LOGB for tabling in Parliament currently. Thank you.
Thank you. Ndate Khaso?
My hand is up.
Member Jackie, are you? I had my hand is up. I'm not sure who. Is that you, Member Jackie?
Honourable Speaker, to say that Honourable Singh is quite right. We need to monitor legislation from the executive through the Office of the Leader of Government Business, especially legislation that will actually monitor and streamline COVID-19 bills, so that we can actually have a way of actually fast-tracking them. As we actually leave the executive probably in a position where they will actually end up taking action that has not yet been approved by Parliament. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you very much. Any other input?
Madam Speaker, I understand that the Bills
Madam
Office
Speaker,
has
yes,
Yes, ma'am. Madam Speaker, I am informed that the Bills Office has since received a list from the executive, from the presidency, but I will establish from them, because I have not seen it yet. We will share it with the Madam Speaker, and then to be circulated to members.
Okay, that I think does that answer you?
Yes, thank you very much. There has to be the smooth functioning between LOGB and us as Parliament. Madam Speaker, thank you for allowing me to raise the matter.
Thank you very much.
Madam Senudi here.
Ndate Senudi?
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. I wanted to say that, Madam Speaker, on the report of Advocate van der Merwe, there is a report that was drafted which the programming committee had requested be done on constitutional deadline. And part of the reason was that the emerging recommendations has implications for work to be done by committees, but also for the executive and how we relate to them around constitutional deadlines and the role of committees in the event that, for example, they do not meet the deadlines, what we should be doing and so on. I would like to request, Madam Speaker, you had requested, you wanted to have a meeting with the team so that we at least wrap that report finally so that we can then action it. There are practical action steps that it has by way of recommendation. We may want to revisit those recommendations they are making so that we can add others that we think are appropriate. And so I wish it's a very concrete one, it's very useful, also helpful in the analysis it does about the reasons for having missed some of the deadlines. We may want to add to them so that we finalize what constitute an important action steps that are contained in there. But I do wish to repeat my request, Madam Speaker, that you and the chairperson of the NCOP, in your next meeting with the head of state and the head of the judiciary, such a report may have relevance in what you take towards them and the relationship that should exist between the judiciary and its entry into the legislative space when it does, and how we are resolving that matter through the report that is coming out of these programming meetings that we've been discussing that matter.
Thank you. Dr. Swart?
Thank you, Speaker. I just wanted to ask for an update at some stage of the list of bills that is sitting on the President's desk for signature. We did receive a list a few months ago, and maybe we could get an update on that, just again to enhance our oversight as to which bills are still awaiting signature, but that's not urgent. It's just something to be monitored. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Dr. Swart. This would be, I think this is a matter we must yet again follow up because it did come up in one of the NAPCs. Ndate Kaso, can we follow up on this? The bills that are awaiting the President's signature.
Speaker, can I come in? Koornhof?
Ndate Koornhof, yes.
Yes. You remember there was a correspondence between your good self and the President's office on exactly this issue of bills sent for assent to the President. If I remember, it was just about middle of March when the President replied to you, Speaker, that he was about ready to pronounce on the number of bills on his desk. And then COVID-19 struck. So we were all taken aback, but I can assure you this matter is on the table and the President will come back to you.
Thank you, sir. I don't know if it is only on my side, but the sound quality is deteriorating, Dr. Kaso.
Yes, ma'am, I just got that as well. We'll see if we cannot resolve the issue from IT.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Honorable members, have we exhausted item 6?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
A number of issues have been brought up. There are follow-ups that we need to do, especially on the LOGB and the presidency on legislation. We must also make sure that the deadlines are met. The input by Ndadetso Nudi about just synchronizing and sometimes having a session with the judiciary on the deadlines and the reasons why certain things and where are stuck and where they are stuck so that we do not. I remember that in the last 5 years I had an explosion once because a bill came 2 or 3 days before the expiry date from the NA into the NCOP. And I was very clear that the NCOP was not going to be blamed. So we need to be looking at this, have a thorough discussion on this and suggestions and recommendations so that we can smooth this whole thing about the bills, starting from introduction to the way until they are signed off. If we are agreed, honorable members, I am moving us on to item number 7.
Speaker, can I just, before we move to item 7, just ask a question about Mr. Bell's presentation? He noted that there are 18 bills before the NA, either before on the order paper or before committees. Can I ask the question whether our portfolio committees will be allowed to consider the bills before them. Thank you.
Ndata Frolik, do you want to sponsor view?
Speaker, I also want to repeat what I said in the Chief Whips Forum and in the NAPC last week. Portfolio committees are not only dealing with COVID-19 related matters, but with all matters that are in front of them, and they are busy updating their programs. Legislation is part of that, and once again, I want to repeat that the committees will deal with legislation as well.
Thank you very much. Can we now start off with item number 7? Proposals for virtual questions sessions. Dade Kaso, do you want to lead us?
Yes, Madam Speaker. I will be brief, Madam Speaker. Last week, this matter was discussed extensively, and it was discussed further in the Chief Whips Forum. And we're now coming before this committee with firm proposals in terms of what should be done in respect of virtual question sessions. I'll start with the cluster system. We are proposing that 2 clusters be combined. In other words, you have a question session where you will ask questions to cluster 2 and cluster 3. And we're also recommending that a reconfiguration of the clusters be considered by the Rules Committee at a later stage. But for now, we go with the current clusters. Current clusters are Cluster 1, Peace and Security, Social Services, Governance, Economics, and another Economics cluster. So saying for the next session, you combine 2 and 3 for a question session. The second point that was discussed was whether you should have a fully virtual sitting or you should have a hybrid. And the recommendation is that we should have a hybrid. You have a number of 40 members of parliament from the different parties in the chamber, or up to 40, let me say, in the chamber, and the rest of the members connecting virtually. The third one relates to supplementary questions. The parties support a managed approach to asking of supplementary questions, where parties would indicate which questions they would like to, under which questions they would like to pose supplementary questions, and the speaker would then make a determination ensuring a fair spread among the different parties in the NA and communicate that determination to the parties the day before. And the last point, Madam Speaker, is that we are recommending that the 27th of May be considered for a question session. We were informed that the 20th of May, I think there might be a cabinet meeting on that day, and therefore we are saying to this committee that please consider 27th of May as a question session. And the last point we want to make is that because we are combining 2 clusters, we propose that the questions from these 2 clusters be included in the question paper seamlessly. In other words, the question paper would not distinguish between questions to cluster 2 and questions to cluster 3, but they are included seamlessly. And we also want to make the point that consideration be given to still, because this will be the first session, it's a pilot exercise, you still limit question session to 3 hours. And lastly, Speaker, very last, I know I already said lastly, but very last, if I may go back to paragraph A, we have given there the sequence of parties for questions. And we want to emphasize paragraph 2. We adjusted that slightly from what we circulated yesterday. It was brought to our attention that the sequence should actually start from the IFP. So the document in front of you now shows IFP, FF plus, ANC in that order for the next question session. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. The floor is open for comments.
Honourable Speaker.
Mendes,
thank you, Honourable Speaker. No, thank you very much for that and for that correction that we sorted out last night. I agree with the proposals here, but if we can just be told when is the deadline for submission of questions so we can bring it to the attention of our members. Thank you. Yes. And then I'll raise the other point about I'll raise the other point about written questions when this discussion is over, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Yes, yes. Honorable Speaker. Ndate Kaso, deadlines for questions to be submitted.
Ma'am, I'm just checking now with questions office. I'll give to the members before we conclude.
Before we conclude. Thank you. Is there any other member?
Honorable Speaker, Natasha.
Members only, please.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, just on the issue of the hybrid system, when are we going to have the official document from Mr. Kaso regarding the hybrid system? Because I would like to start getting my members alerted to the fact so that the DA has the allotted required members in the House. And can we expect, I'm assuming as normal, by sort of late afternoon tomorrow when we get the program, that we'd have the hybrid system document so that we are able to distribute that to our caucuses too. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there any other member? Memento, I see.
No, I'm covered. I wanted the document, Speaker, if we can receive them later today with the guidelines and everything.
Okay.
My hand is up, Speaker. Member Jackie.
Yes, Member Jackie.
Julius also speaker.
To say that as we work towards completion of the hybrid system document, when it comes to numbers, to have a way of actually just defining what we mean by those numbers. When you say 40, whether it's up to 40 members or at least 40 members and more, something like that. So that as we move on, even proportional representation of political parties, whether that will be necessary to include. This is what I think needs to be looked at as we conclude this document, so that along the way there shouldn't be any kind of problems as to whether the seating is legitimate or not.
Yes, I think the point you are making is similar to the one made by Member Zoni, that we should look at all the little things that might go wrong and that might illegitimize the sitting. Thank you very much. Ndate Julius?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just on scheduling and clusters on E, paragraph E, Mr. Kaso mentioned that there might be a cabinet meeting on that day. And I think in the Chief Whip's forum, we mentioned that the cabinet must be informed of this date of the scheduled question session. Are they informed of the dates, and what is the possibilities of us experiencing difficulties with ministers not being able to come because of a cabinet meeting? What can we do, or what is done so far to make sure that ministers will come to these meetings? Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much. Well, the councillors to both the president and the deputy president are here in this meeting. They are hearing us, but there is also communication that will follow up with the leader of government business from my office. But can we hear any comments?
Speaker, you're absolutely correct. I support you. There's informal consultation and then a formal confirm of the date and the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comment on this matter?
Yes,
Madam
Speaker,
Speaker,
Steve Swart.
Ndate Swart?
Speaker, I'd like just to have a look at the number in the hybrid system. The initial proposal from the Chief Whip's forum was 50 members, and then Mr. Kaso correctly pointed out there needed to be staff as well. But I would ask you to consider that in view of what Dr. Pulani Majaka just indicated on proportionality and the size of the chamber. You might want to just have a look. I would tend to think that one could probably quite easily get away with due distancing and hygiene with 50 members plus staff. But can we just get an indication that you could look into that to decide on the motivation for arriving at a specific number? Thank you.
Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. I think we must also take into consideration the number of members of parliament who will be physically in Cape Town, because that is an important number to consider. If people are in Cape Town already, and if in our estimation social distancing can be accommodated with the numbers that are in Cape Town, my sense says that you would not legitimately say to a member who is available, who's in Cape Town, and there's a lot of space in a meter or two in between them, you can't say to such a member no. So the numbers we should be able to say, work out exactly how many members of parliament are in Cape Town, will be in Cape Town, and then so that we can get that. And as much as possible, make sure that there is proportionality so that nobody feels left outside. Is there any other member wishing to comment?
Yes, the speaker is Mkhalipi.
Yes, Mkhalipi.
Yeah, although we made it very clear that we don't support the hybrid system, and it shall be the document that is discussed before us. Just to double check that those who will be in virtual is all members of parliament that will be connected through visual, because the number that's suggested to be in parliament is 40, 50, and so. So those who will be in virtual is all to suggest how many members of parliament can be connected. Are we still going to use Zoom, or are we going to use the team Microsoft? And yes.
I agree that we must leave the numbers to administration to work out, see how many members are actually in Cape Town and will be in Cape Town, and how many members the system can carry. Now, I have my doubts about Zoom, and I have expressed this from last week. It is not just what happened to the Minister of Women and to us today. It is also what happened at the UK Parliament with Zoom that we must be clear of. So Zoom is risky. And unless they can guarantee us, I don't know whether God will whisper in our ears, no blasphemy intended. I am very skeptical unless Zoom can really assure us that we will not go through this. But clearly, they have issues of security. They cannot guarantee those issues. Yes, I am aware that the ASTP says they will have a discussion where it is not only the South African Parliament they have failed. That one in the UK has also been failed by Zoom. So I am very skeptical of going back to Zoom. I must express that. I do not want to be exposed to what I was exposed to this morning. I do not think this country deserves that, not only whatever. So let's look at that. Let's have a comprehensive report in Tate Klaso about, one, the hybrid system, consult us as parties very thoroughly, and then let us see how the numbers will be carried on what platform for the virtual sitting.
We will.
Honorable Speaker, Baroto.
Yes, Ms. Baroto.
No, I just wanted to say, let's not forget that there are parties that declare that they won't be joining the hybrid. So when they do that guideline, it's important that they talk to parties themselves so that they are sure, because we are talking of proportionality, but we agreed that nobody will be forced to be in. Just a reminder to speak.
Yes, ma'am. Thanks for doing that.
Honorable Speaker.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Yes, I haven't changed yet, Speaker. Speaker, may I just say that given the difficulties that we've experienced now with Zoom, and we were very consistent in all meetings of the Chief Whips Forum and the NAPC, that the Zoom platform, the security issues has not been dealt with completely. And that was proven to us this morning. There are honorable members who actually ask that we move completely away from Microsoft Teams to the Zoom platform. I hope that argument is no longer relevant now. What we also need to do is, speakers, to ensure that when meetings are online and it is live streamed on YouTube, there's absolutely no reason why we must have other observers on the same platform, because they can follow it on YouTube. If you, for instance, look at a number of cameras that went on this morning on that Zoom platform, and even now in the conversation that is taking place, there are members or people who are not members of the NEPC who are sitting and having conversations and commenting. We must reserve the platform for members of parliament who are participating in these meetings. If the meetings are online and it is live streamed, there's absolutely no reason to put a number of third parties on the platform, because the more people that are part of the meeting, the greater your security risks are.
That's true.
Speaker,
I was just... Hello.
If I may comment, Speaker.
Ma'am Kalipe, there is a second voice I couldn't quite get.
It's Dlakute.
Okay, Dlakute. Ma'am Kalipe and Dlakute.
Yes, thank you very much, Speaker. After what the chairs of chairs is saying, Speaker, I think that everything happens very fast. After we have agreed that we must reopen Parliament through the virtual, I think as well that we didn't have time also to talk about these virtual platforms. I remember very well when members, I can't remember if it was Chiefs Forum, no Magwagu Apa, the programming committee, whereby we got a report, when we asked specifically, how does these two platforms work? As members, we also don't have fully information in order to satisfy ourselves about these two platforms. And I remember the acting secretary, they didn't have a license at the time. That's why we were also opting to use the Team Microsoft. And we also asked questions such as how many members are also being taken if we are using Team Microsoft or if we are using Zoom. There are also those challenges that as members we don't have clarity on. Chiefs Forum in order to be taken through on these two platforms, because it seems as if it's Team Microsoft or it's Zoom, or do we have any kind of platform that you can use in order to avoid what happened this morning? Thank you.
Yes, those are the things that we are saying. We must come back with a very well thought out process that we must follow. Dlakute.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Yes, I want to support the Honorable members who were about what we said, that it was very unfortunate. Honorable Speaker, the real reason we supported Zoom as members of the ANC was that we have never experienced any challenges. It's much clearer, and we've been holding our caucuses and whips meetings using Zoom without any glitches. So we accept that maybe the security of this feature, both the Microsoft and the Zoom, as you have indicated, that it happened also in the UK Parliament and also in another portfolio committee meeting. That is very unfortunate. If the security can be tightened, Honorable Speaker, because till now we've been using it. We have a larger number of members, connection is clear, and everything is clear with Zoom. We have never experienced this. So if then security of both Microsoft Teams and also Zoom can be explored further to prevent what happened this morning from repeating itself again. So we much appreciate that. But with this one, Microsoft now, we are struggling. I can hear myself, but when somebody speaks, it's difficult for me to understand exactly what they are saying because it's not clear. So Yeah, I wanted just to say that we didn't support for merely supporting, but it's because it gave us good quality service. So the security, we understand it has been breached today, and I support that if only maybe this.
Okay, we lost you a little bit towards the end. Are you done?
I was saying, if participating members of parliament can be connected so that the security of this Microsoft or Zoom is not breached, that will be supported, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much. I think what we are going to do after this meeting is to go into the nitty-gritties of the two platforms. And I want to ask you, Whips, to allow us to lead. I don't know if I got
Speaker.
Honorable Speaker.
I am saying allow us sometimes to lead, because the issues of this pawn stuff came long before the chief whips went and agreed on Zoom. We had already picked up that this platform has issues. And for us to interact with the platform owner and say your issues are this, obviously they want business, they will say no, it's sorted out. Clearly today it's proven it was not sorted out. So we'll come back to you on what platform we are finally going to go with. Yes, Zoom was very clear, but in fact, the first time we used Microsoft Teams, it was clearer than today. I just think that we need to work better on our systems and make sure that we get clearer voice and picture. And also that we ourselves, honorable members, work better with time when we are in virtual meetings, because these meetings usually take us 30 minutes. But once we are on virtual, it takes us 3 hours. Something must be wrong there. Can't be right. Yes, there are pauses in between because somebody else must point, but this shouldn't be taking us this long. So let us conclude this one by saying that we will come back to you with a comprehensive report that will be looking at everything that has to do with this. And then we can make up that decision.
Agreed, Speaker.
With supported, Mayor.
Yes, can we deal also, as we get into this, with the issue that was raised by Ndate Singh of the unanswered questions? Ndate Kaso?
Madam Speaker, may I just give a bit of a background on it?
Yes, please.
And unfortunately, I have a caucus meeting waiting for me from 10:30, so I may just have to leave after this. Madam Speaker, I think the rules are quite clear. The rules of the Assembly are very, very clear in terms of by what time frame ministers should be providing questions, answers to written questions. It's 10 days, and we haven't had answers to some of my members' questions that were tabled in February, the 13th of February, the 6th of March, and this is not acceptable, Honourable Speaker, and the Office of the Leader of the Government Business should be looking into this, the replies to these outstanding questions. We really cannot have that happening.
I agree that Singh, we should, hopefully the councillors are hearing us. This is unacceptable. Questions for written response. If the minister has any issues, they usually write and alert us, and we look into it and we communicate with the person who has put the question in. So we must go back to it and make sure that we follow the rules on this one. I don't think we want a further discussion on it. People must just follow the rules. If there is any reason why they are not, they must come back to us. They must be open. But no question for written response should just be discarded with us, without us knowing exactly what is going on. And we cannot have any excuse. We cannot excuse anybody on this one.
Thank you,
So
Speaker.
we'll deal with it in that Singh.
Thank you, Speaker.
Madam Speaker, before we go to point 8, can I just say something on point 7 again?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just for the sake of Honorable Singh also, he asked a question on the deadline of submission of questions. I just wanted to know from Honorable Kaso, does he have it as yet? Thank you.
Madam Speaker and members, the deadline is the 14th, to be the 14th of for the next question session, and the date for the session for now is 27th May. So the deadline is next week, next Thursday, 14th of May.
Thank you.
Dr. Kaso, please repeat. The sound is not too great.
Right. Madam Speaker, the deadline for the next question session is the 14th of May, 2020.
14th of May.
2020. Yes, Madam Speaker.
Okay.
And also,
Thank
Madam
you
Speaker,
very much.
And the cluster that are submitting is?
It's cluster 2 and cluster 3.
Thank you.
And just to
Thank
indicate,
you. Is that all clear?
It seems, ma'am. Madam Speaker, just to add that you wrote to the executive about 2 weeks ago, urging the executive to please respond to questions for written reply by members. So Speaker has really attended to that, but will continue just following up on the matter.
Yeah.
Madam
Thank
Speaker,
you very much.
Madam Speaker,
yes, Ntate Tsenudi.
I just wanted to say that can we also be specific? I think it will work better if we work with specific people so that we don't generalize. Because there are some people who may be responding regularly, but they are included, so to speak, by default, by not specifying who is not responding, so that we are sharper in following up who is not responding and what are the reasons for that, if they do it habitually. I think I would really appeal, like the letter you have written, for example. We should now next time say specifically, it's the following 3 ministers who are not responding all the time or sometimes. I really strongly suggest that we do it that way. When we are concrete and specifics, we are likely to get a better response. Thank you.
Ntate, thank you. That is actually what we do, because to just hobalella batho is not fair. So we will specify, Minister so-and-so, this is the question you did not respond. Question number so-and-so, this, we'll do that. So that we do not accuse people who are performing together with those who are not performing. I think
Agreed,
that is what we were saying, that we must be direct and specific. We'll do that, sir. Can we move on, honorable members, to item number 8?
Madam Speaker, may I be excused? Singh.
Yes, Ntate Singh.
May I be excused?
You are excused.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
May I proceed, Madam Speaker?
Please proceed. Please
Madam
proceed.
Speaker, the document is on the screen. We are just indicating here what has happened up to now in respect of the budget. We've passed Division of Revenue on the 18th, and it is currently before the NCOP. And in terms of the NCOP program, that House is planning to pass.
Ntate Kaso, I hope all the other members have a screen I don't have.
Let me
so that is why I say when you do virtual meetings, it's better to be within certain timelines, because afterwards the system just goes.
All right.
Can all the members see the screen?
We've got it on our email, Speaker.
Okay. Yes. Please proceed.
It's on the screen.
Yes, ma'am. And then we are making the point here, Madam Speaker, that in terms of Section 10, subsection 3 of the Money Act, the committees on appropriations may not consider amendment to the appropriation bill prior to the passing of the division of revenue and end up in the fiscal framework and division of revenue bill passed by Parliament. And that is why, ma'am, we have loosely been saying that wait for the division of revenue bill before you finalize the appropriation bill, because you may not be able to preempt whether or not, when you consider the bill, you will not want to amend it, because Parliament should always be open-minded when it considers legislation before it. And in paragraph B, we are then saying, while theoretically the NA can finalize appropriation bill before division of revenue bill is passed, it may not consider any amendments to the bill before division of revenue bill is passed. We then reflect on what happens in terms of the budget process within the NA, that ordinarily you will have committees looking at strategic plans and the budget votes, which is what is happening currently. And after the committees have finalized that, you then have mini plenary debates where each budget vote is debated in a mini plenary. And once that happens, the Committee on Finance, or rather appropriations, reports on the budget, on the appropriation bill, and the matter goes before the House for decision by the House after the mini plenaries. Can the document please go up? We are then saying that based on the current programs of both houses, the NA and the NCOP, if the NCOP passes the Division of Revenue Bill on the 2nd of June, the NA would then be able to start with mini plenaries around in the week of the 2nd of June, maybe the 3rd or 4th of June. That process usually takes about 2 weeks. And if we do that, the budget could then be passed in the week of 15 June or latest the week of 22 June. So, honorable members, there are basically mainly two dependent, maybe three dependencies. One, the committees looking at the strategic plans and the budget votes, which is what is happening currently. So that one is going on. There is no issues with that. The second one is the mini plenaries. If they happen, we must budget about 2 weeks for mini plenaries because you take about 6 mini plenaries ordinarily in a day. And the other dependency is the passing of the Division of Revenue Bill by the NCOP on the 2nd of June, which is what is currently the case at the moment. If you did not have mini plenaries, what you would have is what the committees are doing now, and then the committees report, and when you get to the House, you have debate on and you have on each of the budget votes, and then you decide on the budget. So we just thought we should highlight those issues just to inform decision making on the matter. We are also highlighting this. We have mentioned in the Chief Whip's Forum that the Minister has addressed correspondence to both the Speaker and the Chair of the NCOP, appealing to Parliament to consider passing the budget earlier than we currently have scheduled. And the request from the Minister was the 31st of May. But the way things are looking at the moment, it's not going to happen. And remember, when we pass it as the NA, it must still go to the NCOP. The NCOP, we do not know the date yet, how long it will take to consider the budget. Madam Speaker, I will stop at that point for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Honorable Speaker.
The comments?
Honorable Speaker. Members.
I'm not sure who is calling. Is that Medla Kude?
Yes, Honorable Speaker.
Please have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thanks to Mr. Kaso for that presentation. Indeed, it was done also in our consultation meeting in the Chief Whips Forum. What we agreed upon, Honorable Speaker, is that there should be no shortcuts when it comes to passing off the budget, because that might come back to bite Parliament. So we must do everything legally possible to make sure that we pass the budget as expected, as per the legal prescripts. I just wanted to say that, Honorable Speaker. Thanks.
Honorable Speaker, can I make a contribution? Koornhof.
Ndati Koornhof, go ahead.
Thank you. Following on Honorable Rakude, that we follow the legal processes, I fully agree, and the rules of Parliament. But at the same time, we're in unusual times, dealing with a disaster. And 2020 is turning out not to be a normal year. But saying that, we need to stick to the mandate of Parliament. So I want to make the following proposal for your consideration and the NAPC consideration. First of all, the May program. I think we allow the portfolio committees to complete their oversight work. It's broadly going well. There are some problems, and it's being sorted out, as we've discussed earlier in this meeting, to oversight of the strategic plans, the APPs, and the budgets. I think let us complete that process for the rest of May. That's my first proposal. Secondly, that you as the NA will liaise with the NCOP to see whether at all possible, whether they can pass the DORA, the Division of Revenue bill, before the 2nd of June. That's the second proposal. The third proposal is that in the mini plenaries, in the document that Mr. Kasu has just given to us, it will take us a couple of weeks, 12 days, to pass if we schedule it. So I want to make a proposal that we either do away with mini plenaries in this unusual circumstances, if the rules and the procedure allows that, or that we drastically reduce the time allocation for mini plenaries. And then the next point is that because we're dealing with the Appropriation Bill 2020, that the time allocated for the debate, that we stick to the spokespersons of the various political parties. We don't have to have a full-fledged debate, I think. And when we have declarations of votes after the Appropriation Bill 2020, that we also allow the spokespersons of parties to make the declaration of the votes. The votes. Why I'm saying this is we're dealing with the Appropriation Bill 2020. What Mr. Kasu has just said to us, that the Minister of Finance wants to table adjustments appropriation bill. And that is where the main focus of Parliament will come in for oversight, especially. And the sooner we get to the oversight process of the adjustments appropriation bill, that's for the 2020-21 going forward. I think when it's that tabled, our focus should be on that. So that's my proposal for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ntate Koornhof. Is there any other person commenting? Honorable members, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Madam Speaker.
Yes,
I'm not sure.
Madam Speaker.
Yeah, my screen has gone blank, but I can get some sound.
Madam Speaker, it's Natasha.
Mema Jackie, I hear you.
Yes, we can hear you, and I think it's a number of proposals that have been put forward. And indeed, I would agree with Dr. Koornhof that this is a year unusual. So basically, we cannot actually go with business as usual. But the point of contention when it comes to passing of the budget vote is the amount of time that we traditionally take to have those budget votes, so all of those schedules to be passed. If we can actually come up with a mechanism that can try and make it possible for us to actually deal with these votes within a shorter space of time, I think that's where the answer will lie. And indeed, there has been suggestions about mini plenaries, whether they will be viable or not, and the fact that maybe it's about only 3 mini plenaries we can have a day. But other suggestions were saying, why not, if we can only connect 3 mini plenaries at a time, why not have like 3 sessions of mini plenaries per day, so that one day can actually have 9 mini plenaries, because the mini plenaries are very important in the sense that that's where the real debates can actually take place, so that by the time we actually come to the point of voting, already we've actually done away with the debates, and the parties can actually indicate as to where they need to make the declarations. And my suggestion would be, this is a year unusual. Parties should actually be cautious about really just wanting to make declarations, which will be almost like repetition of what actually was said in the debates. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you very much. Anybody else asking for the floor?
Speaker, it's Natasha.
Please continue.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I'm concerned that in our rush to get this through the budget process, that we are going to be overlooking our role of holding the executive to account, and certainly doing our interrogation that we should be doing in our budget votes. Now, the budget is an incredibly important part of the work that we do, and given the fact that we are in a situation unnormal, it's become more important than ever for us to make sure that we're interrogating our budget and the spending of funds in the correct fashion, because money at the moment is so incredibly tight, and so many millions and millions of South Africans require money to be directed in various ways that we wouldn't have seen before, because we are in such an unusual state. Now, I'm very worried about having 9 mini plenaries a day, because it means that we lose any form of public participation and any form of the country watching us as we do our debates, because we take the country on the journey with us when we discuss and debate our budgets. And I'm very concerned that we are, in our haste to get through these budget processes, we are going to be doing the people who voted us into office in the country a disservice by not interrogating these budgets in the correct fashion. So I would like us to seriously think of a way in which we can still be the people's parliament, still take the country on the budgetary journey with us, but make sure that we interrogate these budgets with the necessary attention they require. Because 9 plenaries a day means that people are going to be very thinly spread, especially the smaller parties, and it's certainly not fair to a multi-party democracy system for us to limit people's rights to debate in this fashion.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there any other member?
Honourable Speaker, it's
Yes,
Dr. Cooper speaking.
Scott, after
Julius,
if I may proceed, Honourable Speaker, I have read the proposal by Dr. Cooper. It deals with a number of issues. If I am correct, we don't have to take the final decision on this process today. Is it possible to have that proposal in writing so that we can also consult with caucuses and perhaps take a decision on this next week, please, if I may ask?
Dr. Kwerinov, can you give us that proposal in writing for other caucuses to consider them? And that, yeah, what I'm getting from Honorable Mulder is that we should actually take time to consider this before we say yes or no today. Dr. Julius, did you want to say something?
My hand up.
And
thank you.
I'm still asking whether Dr. Julius, I thought you wanted to speak.
Yes, Speaker, thank you.
Please proceed.
Yes, I fully agree with Dr. Mulder, or the father of the house, that we should get clarity on that. But I just want to add that Dr. Kurinov also include the views of cabinet and the ministers on the possibility of having mini plenaries and their available time and everything, so that we can have a thorough report coming from them too. You know, what's the possibility? Thank you, Lord.
That's good. There was somebody else who said the hand is up.
Steve Swart.
Hello.
And Natasha Kangweni.
Can you hear me?
Please proceed, ma'am.
And Khalifi Speaker.
I think Honorable Nhlangwini has been recognized, and your mic is off.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Yes, please proceed.
Oh, okay, thank you, Speaker. I want to also concur with the view that we need to get it in writing, Speaker, so that we can actively consult, because there's one proposal in there that I'm fully not in agreement with, that there should be no mini plenaries for discussing the budget procedure, because these mini plenaries, Speaker, do give us a platform to sort of also state our case as to why we agree with the budget process, why we don't agree with the budget process. So I do think we should have a bit of time to discuss this further and come back next week with an answer regarding if we are getting also on time the written out proposal by Dr. Koronov. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. It seems to me that we sum it up by saying, Dr. Koronov, as soon as possible, give us a written proposal, which we must then distribute amongst us as parties for consideration. What I do need to get now is, by when should we come back and finalize this proposal on the way forward on how we are going to deal with the budget?
Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I think we should also involve the office of the House Chairperson on committees, also to assist with a proposal on what is doable and what is not doable. But we agree on mini plenaries, Honorable Speaker. So thank you.
Yes. I take your point. When we get the written proposal from Ndati Koronov, all the members of NAPC are given copies of that. Then, obviously, the Honorable House Chair committees, the committees dealing with the budget, everybody else is consulting, and then we come back to a refined document and inputs, and then we take the decision. This is the process that we are finally going to adopt. I thought that is what we are summing up to on this particular one, on the budget process.
Agreed, Speaker.
Secretary for National Assembly.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I got that point.
You got the point, sir. So yes, what we need to do is coordinate those efforts, parties consult, we have a discussion on that, and then at the earliest convenience, we meet again and we say this is the process for the budget that we are adopting in this unusual period.
Yes, ma'am.
Speaker, can I just say that to refine that I will submit that to the office of the House Chairperson for committees, and then he can liaise with the Secretary and yourself to follow the process.
Thanks a lot. Yes. Thank you. Is there any other matter that we still have to discuss under this? Hello?
Timeline, Speaker. When are we getting that from the leader of government?
That Koronov is submitting, and that Koronov by end of business today?
No problem.
Honourable Speaker,
yes.
Could I ask something else, please? With regard to this specific thing, shouldn't the first call for this discussion be the Chief Whip's forum?
The first point of call is because this is for us to get that document out of Dr. Kuranov into the hands of the House chairs, and the House chair is then relating that to the Chief Whip's forum.
I'm covered, thank you, ma'am.
Yes, and I don't know if it is the Chief Whip's forum per se, because I think each Chief Whip would want to consult also with their own, which is why it is important for the raw proposal to be with each of us in the NAPC.
Speaker,
so whether Chief Whips you want to meet first as Chief Whips, or you want to take it to your caucuses first, that's up to you. All we need to know is that there must be that consultation, and that we must then have a consolidated view on the process.
Yeah, I think it's very proper, Speaker, to receive a document to all of us, and then we take it to our caucuses. It's up to us as Chief Whips how do we...
Yeah. I think we are agreed on this one.
Yes.
Can we step off and get into the 9th item?
That will be the program, Madam Speaker, I believe.
Yes.
And the program will
draft parliamentary program
very much be affected.
Nemajake, are you ready?
Speaker, it's Member Papu. I just wanted to say something before the program is presented.
Member Jake, are you ready?
I am ready, Speaker. I heard Honorable Papu saying something. I thought you were addressing that.
Oh, I didn't hear Honorable Papu. Honorable Papu, jump in as Majake gets ready to talk to us.
I just wanted
you are still on item 8, I take it, in Tatipa.
No, it's linked to the program because it says, somebody said it's going to affect. Remember, Mr. Kaso said it's going to be affected by the discussion we just held. I was just saying, until the amendments which Dr. Goranov are making to the budget process itself, the current program will have to remain until the amendments are effected, so that we don't have a limbo situation where ministries don't know what's going to happen. So my understanding is that Dr. Goranov was not saying let's stop everything. He says we'll submit the amendments, but the current program and the proposed process as it was remain, so that we don't suspend everything pending the discussion on whether we have many plenaries or whatever. And the sense I got is that people support many plenaries, is the logistics of the times and how those many plenaries are done. That's what I wanted to actually raise, so that we don't have a lacuna where we are waiting for amendments to the budget process and nothing happens. And because the program is also affected by that issue.
Okay, I think the two are not mutually exclusive. I thought we'd go to item number 9, see the draft program, but also still know that as soon as possible, because that decision we are going to take as programming, once we have consolidated our view on the budget process. So we might go on to item number 9, get the draft program. After discussions and deliberations in the committees, know how we then adjust the draft program, which Member Jake is about to unfold to us. Can we agree on that?
Yes, Honorable
Member Jake, please proceed.
I am ready. And just to allay fears of actually getting confused when it comes to the program, is to say we have already agreed that when it comes to the program, we're not going to actually worry so much as to what is coming weeks ahead. What we do, we always want to know, especially what is happening like next week and the week to follow. because along the way there may be changes that are actually taking place because of the rearranging, because of our rearranging of business. So for now, we are on week number 12. So today what I'm presenting is week 12, week 13, week 14 of the program. So the framework still remains the same. Nothing has changed in terms of the framework. If it has got to change, it will be out of a business that will actually have taken place in the programming committee meeting. So for this week, which is week number 12, we are today on the 5th of May. And today, the 5th of May, committees are continuing to sit for oversight work. And the oversight work that the committees are actually doing will be including also COVID-19 business. And then the main focus of the committees for now, in terms of parliamentary program processes, is the departmental strategic plans and departmental performance plans. This is what is actually being looked at for this week, which is taking place today. I'm not mentioning the committees. We have agreed that we don't have to worry about the committees. Whoever is worried about the committees should actually look at the Z lists. Tomorrow, being Friday the 8th, the same business in terms of committees will be continuing tomorrow. And then week 13, Monday the 11th is constituency day. Tuesday the 12th of May is continuation of business of committees as clearly already articulated. And then the Chief Whips Forum that used to actually take place on a Tuesday will now move to Wednesday. And of course, the committee still continues, and on a Thursday we'll continue with programming. I see here it's written 8:30, but lately we've been meeting at 9 o'clock, and I would like us to actually just confirm the time for the programming committee meeting of Thursday, the 14th of May. And then Friday, the 15th of May, still continuation of committees. The week that is to follow the week of the 13th, business of that week is exactly the same as business of the week of the 13th. I thank you, Speaker. Speaker?
Are you done, ma'am?
I'm done, yes.
Okay. So the floor is open, members. And I think that takes, because of the way the draft program is structured, the input by Honorable Papo is taken into consideration, because after our deliberations, by the next NAPC, we should be able to then say, these are the amendments we are putting in, these are the additions. Is there any other member wishing to participate?
Madam Speaker? Koornoff?
Yes, sir.
Can I make a proposal that we accept,
yes, sir.
Approve the program as was presented by Honorable Majaki?
Is there a seconder to anybody to that proposal? Anybody?
I second.
A seconder to adopt the program as it is until we meet next time?
Speaker?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Honorable Speaker, Member Jackie talked about the 8:30 and 9. I had the same problem this morning because the email was saying 8:30, and I thought the 8:30 would be open for the checking so that everybody is checked as to whether they are okay. Maybe we should have avoided what we saw this morning late after 9. I think the IT section must start early so that everybody is settled when 9 o'clock starts, so that we start the meeting on time. Thanks.
Yes, ma'am. I agree with that. Mayor Broto, are you seconding Tate Kuranov in adopting that for the correction of the start time of the meeting?
I do, ma'am. Thank you.
Speaker, my hand was up.
Very much.
Julius also, ma'am.
Sure, welcome, waiting, Speaker.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Speaker, I also think that we shouldn't give out the meeting ID on a public platform. To also just, as Mr. Furolega earlier on said, to minimize the amount of people that are logging in. So the meeting ID should just be given to us as members, and then the rest of and everyone can join on YouTube the meeting.
Yes.
Thanks, Speaker.
I agree. I hope that administration, you are listening. Ndatemuloto Mutapo, I hope you and your crew are listening to us on this one.
We can hear that, ma'am. Thanks.
Thanks.
Madam Speaker.
Any other comment on item 9, that now that we have agreed that we are adopting it, but that we may have to have a relook next week when we have had this discussion amongst parties and the Chief Whips Forum?
Madam Speaker.
Can we proceed to the next item?
Madam Speaker, Uxaso.
Yes, Uxaso.
Just wanted to check. I think we are agreeing to the meeting is agreeing to the program with the inclusion of the 27th of May as a provisional question day. Am I correct?
Yes, we are correct.
Thank you, ma'am.
Because earlier on, that proposal on the virtual question sessions was put and nobody went against it. We agreed. We agreed that it is the how part that will be refined, but the date is set.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Agreed, Speaker. Is there any other matter, honorable members?
Yes, Honorable Speaker, I propose closure of the meeting. Thank you.
Yes, just a small little thing, honorable members. We did get the announcement of the passing away of one of the parliamentary staff attached to the Deputy Secretary's office. That day, Deputy Speaker is representing us all there, conveying our condolences. We must also convey, because there was a second person who passed connected to Parliament, we must formally, as the NAPC, convey our condolences to Ntate Nyonso, because we understand that the person who's passed on is his protector. Technically not the staff of Parliament, but we can't unrelate to the man because he was protecting one of us. So we convey our condolences to the PAC and to the family of the departed member. With that, I wanted to say thank you very much for the patience. Thank you very much for absorbing the shock we went through earlier today, and we hope that we are never subjected to that. And thank you very much, honorable members, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. The meeting is closed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you.
Speaker.
Thank you.
I saw